It was nearly midnight, and the world outside the towering corporate office had gone silent. I had just clocked in for another graveyard shift as the janitor, a job I'd grown accustomed to over the years. The empty corridors and the faint hum of electronics were my only companions. I pushed the mop bucket into the main hallway, the echo of the wheels bouncing off the walls. Something about this building always unsettled me, the way the shadows clung to the corners, the way the air always felt heavy, as if the walls were holding their breath. I passed by the break room, where the faint flicker of a malfunctioning light caught my attention. I stopped, staring at the way the shadows seemed to move unnaturally. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper. "Help!" I froze. My hands gripped the mop handle tighter as I scanned the hallway. It was empty. The whisper came again, this time closer. "Help me." I turned toward the sound, my pulse racing. It seemed to come from the large conference room at the end of the hall. The frosted glass doors stood ajar, and I could see the faint outline of something, or someone, inside. I swallowed hard and moved closer. "Hello? Is someone there?" No response. Just a sudden gust of cold air that sent a shiver down my spine. The lights overhead began to flicker violently. I stepped into the room, flashlight in hand. The air inside was freezing, unnaturally so. My breath formed small clouds in front of me. The long table and chairs were undisturbed, but the room felt wrong. As I scanned the room with the flashlight, I saw it, a figure standing in the corner. It was barely visible, like a shadow darker than the rest. Its head tilted to the side, and I could feel its gaze on me even though it had no eyes. My voice shook. "Who are you?" The figure didn't move, but the whisper returned, louder this time. "Leave, before it's too late." And then it vanished. Shaken, I left the conference room and headed toward the janitor's closet, my mind racing. I'd heard stories about this building, rumors among the night staff about strange noises and shadows. I'd always dismissed them as overactive imaginations, but now I wasn't so sure. As I reached the closet, I noticed something strange. A door I'd never seen before stood at the far end of the hallway. It was heavy and metallic, with a rusted padlock securing it shut. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a crowbar from my supply cart and pried the lock off with a few hard pulls. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down. The air was thick with the smell of soot and burnt wood. My flashlight illuminated charred walls and scattered debris. At the bottom of the stairs was a small, forgotten room. Inside, I found remnants of the past, melted picture frames, burnt file cabinets, and old newspapers stacked in a corner. One headline caught my eye. "Fire at Midtown Office Tower Claims 13 Lives, Suspected Arson." I stared at the article, my hands trembling. The fire had happened decades ago, long before the building was renovated and reopened. 13 employees had died, their bodies never recovered. As I read further, a chilling detail caught my attention. The fire had started in the very room I was standing in. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped even further. My flashlight began to flicker. The shadows on the walls seemed to twist and writhe. And then, I heard it again. "Help us." The whisper was louder now, surrounding me, coming from every direction. The shadows grew darker, converging in the center of the room. They formed a shape, a figure engulfed in flames, its charred face twisted in agony. "Why did you leave us?" it screamed, its voice a mix of rage and despair. I stumbled back, tripping over debris, my flashlight clattering to the floor. The figure advanced, its burning hand reaching for me. I scrambled to my feet and ran up the stairs, slamming the door shut behind me. My chest heaved as I tried to catch my breath, but the whispers didn't stop. They followed me, growing louder and more insistent. Back in the hallway, I leaned against the wall, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a haunting, it was something deeper, something personal. I needed answers. I couldn't go back to work. My hands trembled as I gripped the mop handle for support, my breathing uneven. The whispers in my head refused to fade. Every creak in the building now felt deliberate, every shadow alive. But something compelled me to dig deeper. The forgotten room haunted my thoughts. The charred figure's scream echoed in my mind. "Why did you leave us?" What did it mean? I had never worked in this building before the renovations. I had no connection to the fire, or so I thought. Determined to find answers, I made my way to the security office. The building's CCTV system might hold clues. The security office was dark and cramped, its walls lined with monitors displaying grainy footage of every floor. I scanned the screens, focusing on the conference room, but nothing seemed out of place. I rewound the footage to earlier in the night, just before I heard the whispers. And that's when I saw it. The screen showed me walking down the hallway, but I wasn't alone. A shadow followed me, slithering along the walls, moving unnaturally fast. I paused the footage, my heart racing. On another screen, the storage room door that I had pried open earlier was already ajar. Inside, the shadows seemed to shift, almost like they were watching the camera. Then the monitors began to flicker. The screen showing the conference room went dark, replaceable. The doorknob began to turn. I backed away, clutching a chair for protection as the door creaked open. The hallway beyond was empty, but the air was freezing cold. I could see my breath again. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice shaking. The only response was the faint sound of a woman crying. It came from somewhere deep within the building, echoing like a ghostly wail. I stepped out into the hallway, the flashlight in my hand trembling. The crying grew louder as I followed it, leading me to an elevator that stood open, its interior lights flickering. Reluctantly, I stepped inside. The buttons glowed faintly, but the elevator didn't move. Instead, the crying sound filled the small space, louder and more anguished. The doors suddenly slammed shut, and the elevator plummeted. I screamed, bracing myself against the walls as the lights flickered violently. Just when I thought it would crash, it stopped abruptly. The doors slid open to reveal a floor I didn't recognize. The walls were charred black, the air thick with the smell of burning flesh. Desks and chairs were overturned, and the faint outlines of burnt figures were etched into the walls, their mouths open in silent screams. "Help us!" The whispers surrounded me again, desperate and pained. I stumbled forward, the floor beneath me creaking ominously. A faint orange glow lit up the far end of the room, and I saw them, shadows of people, their bodies engulfed in flames, reliving their final moments. A woman stepped forward from the flames, her eyes hollow and black. Her voice was a mix of rage and sorrow. "Why did you let us die?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I shouted, backing away. My foot caught on a broken chair, and I fell hard to the ground. The woman's charred face twisted into a snarl. "Liar! You were there. You let him burn us all." "I wasn't here. I didn't." The memories hit me like a freight train. Images flooded my mind, a younger version of myself standing in the middle of a crowded office, smoke filling the air, flames spreading quickly. I had been there. I had survived the fire. But how? The realization struck me like ice water. I had escaped. I had left them behind. The spirits closed in, their whispers turning into screams. "You abandoned us. You let us die." I didn't know. My voice broke as tears streamed down my face. "I didn't know how to save you." The woman stopped inches from my face. Her blackened hand reached out, grabbing my wrist with an icy grip. "Then help us now," she hissed. The floor beneath me gave way, and I fell into darkness. I woke up in the middle of a blazing inferno. The office was in chaos, just like the night of the fire. People screamed, trapped by collapsing walls and spreading flames. This wasn't a memory. This was happening now. The spirits surrounded me, their voices echoing in my head. "Save us, or burn with us." I didn't know what to do. The flames licked at my heels as I ran from one corner of the room to the next, trying to find a way out. The spirits pointed toward a glowing doorway at the far end of the office. "You can free us," the woman's voice said. "But you must face him." "Who?" I shouted, my voice barely audible over the roar of the fire. The shadows parted, revealing a figure at the center of the blaze. It was a man, his body consumed by flames, his eyes burning with hatred. "The one who started it all," the woman said. The man in the flames stepped forward, his presence radiating malice and hatred. His charred features were almost unrecognizable, but his burning eyes locked onto me with a terrifying intensity. "Why have you returned?" his voice rumbled, deep and guttural, like the crackling of firewood. I stepped back, the heat from his body searing the air between us. "Who are you?" I shouted, trying to keep the fear from my voice. "You don't remember me, do you?" he hissed, his face twisting into a grin. "You're just like the rest of them, selfish, greedy, and blind. You left me here to die." The spirits around me wailed in agony, their voices blending with his rage. The air grew heavier, the flames licking at the walls as if the building itself were alive. "What do you mean?" I demanded, shielding my face from the heat. "You worked here," the arsonist growled. "You were part of the machine. You let it happen. You let me happen." Memories began to flood back. Years ago, I had taken a temp job in this very building. It was supposed to be a quick gig, a stepping stone. But on the night of the fire, there had been rumors about a disgruntled employee, someone who had been fired unfairly and vowed revenge. "You started the fire," I whispered, the realization dawning on me. He laughed, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Yes, I did. And it was beautiful, wasn't it? Watching them all burn. But you escaped. You survived." The spirits closed in around me, their hollow eyes pleading. "Help us," they cried. "He won't let us go." "You trapped them here," I said, my voice trembling. "Why?" "They were part of the system," the arsonist snarled. "They deserved to suffer, just like I did. And now, so do you." The flames surged toward me, forcing me to retreat into a corner. I could feel the heat biting at my skin, the air thick with smoke. "You can't run," he said, his voice echoing. "This building is mine now. It belongs to the fire." Desperate, I turned to the spirits. "What do I do? How do I stop this?" The woman from before stepped forward, her charred face filled with sorrow. "You must free us," she said. "Destroy him, and we can move on. But you must face the fire." "How?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. She pointed to a steel door at the far end of the room, glowing faintly amidst the flames. "That's where it began. That's where it must end." With no other choice, I sprinted toward the door, dodging collapsing beams and swirling embers. The arsonist's laughter followed me, growing louder with every step. "You can't escape me," he roared. I burst through the steel door and found myself in the basement, the same room I had discovered earlier. But now, it was engulfed in flames, the walls pulsating with heat. At the center of the room stood a blackened altar, surrounded by what looked like melted office supplies and charred photographs. The arsonist appeared behind me, his fiery form towering over everything. "This is where it all ends," he said. "For you, and for them." The spirits gathered behind me, their voices rising in unison. "Stop him. Destroy the source." I realized the altar was the key. It was the nexus of his power, the anchor keeping the spirits trapped. With every ounce of courage, I grabbed a heavy piece of debris and slammed it into the altar. The arsonist screamed in fury, the flames around him flaring wildly. "No," he bellowed. "You can't take this from me." The altar cracked, the ground beneath it splitting open. A blinding light erupted from the fissure, and the spirits began to ascend, their anguished cries turning into songs of relief. The arsonist lunged at me, his fiery hands reaching for my throat. But the light consumed him, pulling him into the void along with the flames. The fire disappeared as quickly as it had come. The building was quiet again, the air cool and still. I collapsed onto the ground, exhausted and trembling. The woman's voice echoed softly. "Thank you. You've set us free." I looked up and saw her face, no longer charred but peaceful. She smiled faintly before fading into the light. As the spirits disappeared, the building seemed to exhale, the weight of decades of torment lifting at last. I stumbled out into the night, the cool air filling my lungs. Looking back at the towering structure, I realized it wasn't just a building, it was a graveyard of memories, pain, and redemption. And I had survived it again. But as I turned to leave, a faint whisper carried on the wind. "We'll always be watching." It had happened with me and I still couldn't get over from it. By the way, have you ever faced something paranormal in your entire life? If yes, then write it in the comments section. Like and subscribe for more chilling stories. Thanks for listening till to the end.